Hello, and welcome to the information session for the Community Facility Enhancement Program Large Funding Stream under the Ministry of Arts, Culture, and Status of Women. This video will provide a general program overview, go over the recent changes to the guidelines and application process, and discuss application criteria and what is needed for supporting documents. The Community Facility Enhancement Program Large aims to foster healthy, vibrant communities across Alberta. The program has been designed to support the efforts of nonprofit organizations that contribute to their communities and to create opportunities for Albertans to engage with their communities. Specifically, CFEP Large responds to local facility enhancement needs and works in partnership with eligible nonprofit organizations to assist communities with their renewal, expansion, purchase, or build of public use community facilities. CFEP outcomes have recently undergone changes to further define and provide more context on short and intermediate term goals of projects. These outcomes are the indicators of success and can be evaluated on to determine the impact of the project in the community. Immediate outcomes of projects are the short-term goals, which include public use facilities that are available for Albertans, improve safety, accessibility, and usability of public use facilities and outdoor spaces for a variety of activities and events, increase facility space and green space, as well as economic benefits for the community because of the project. Intermediate outcomes of projects are the medium-term goals, which include extended lifespan of public use facilities and outdoor spaces, sustained or increased use of public facilities, sustained or increased employment in the facility, sustained or increased generated revenue, and non-government funding invested by organizations as a result of the project. Community nonprofit organizations must be registered for a minimum of 2 years at the time of submitting their expression of interest, also referred to as the EOI. Organizations must be in good standing under one of the legislations listed here. A public use community facility is generally a place, building, or amenity to facilitate specific type of community use activities like recreation, sport, culture, heritage, social, and community services. Examples of these include a permanent or semi-permanent built structure, parks, playgrounds, natural areas, outdoor spaces, museums and libraries, theaters, art galleries, performance halls, and social or community service facilities. Other facilities may be eligible that have not been captured here. The key criteria here is that the facility is open to the general public and provides space for a community service or program. CFEP Large funding provides financial assistance for eligible projects, such as renewing a facility, which may include restoring, refurbishing, upgrading, or other initiatives to improve the general conditions of a facility to extend its useful lifespan. It should be noted that regular repairs and upkeep required to maintain and operate the facility are not eligible. Expanding an existing facility by retrofitting, redeveloping, converting, arranging, or rearranging existing spaces based on evolving needs of an organization's programs and services. Purchasing a facility to deliver new or existing programs and services. And lastly, building a new facility for the provision of new or existing programs and/or services. Projects can include equipment purchases integral to supporting the public use community facility that are part of the project, including unlicensed motorized vehicles, appliances, and furniture. There are projects that are ineligible in the CFEP guidelines. This includes multiple facilities on one application. For example, if an organization has facilities in both Edmonton and Red Deer, costs for upgrading both facilities cannot be on the same application. Land, equipment, or technology as a standalone project. Private or commercial sector facilities. Facilities with a restricted or extremely limited public use. Private, residential, or group housing facilities. Places of worship or church sanctuaries. Upgrades to facilities that provide gaming activities, like bingo halls, casinos, etc., or the purchase of gaming equipment. Debt reduction. Core or essential municipal facilities which are the responsibility of the municipality. School facilities or post-secondary institutions for infrastructure projects or academic purposes. It is also important to review ineligible expenses, which can be found in Section 3.5 of the CFEP Large Guidelines. Eligibility and funding. The funding range request for CFEP Large is $125,001 up to $1 million. However, we would recommend that if you're just over the $125,000 threshold, that you consider applying to the CFEP Small funding stream. Another thing to note is that CFEP Large recipients must sign a formal agreement, and as part of that agreement, are required to submit a review engagement report as part of their final reporting. This can be costly for organizations and may outweigh the benefit of applying through CFEP Large. Expenses incurred prior to the application submission date are not eligible. Costs incurred prior to the expression of interest submission also cannot be included in the project budget. CFEP is a matching grant. This means the applicant must contribute an amount equal to or exceeding the grant request. For example, if you're requesting $500,000, you must have a matching amount of at minimum $500,000. An organization can only receive one capital grant per year. This is true for all community grant programs and includes capital projects under CFEP Small and capital equipment under CIP project-based. Organizations must be in good standing under the act or legislation they are incorporated under, and this applies to at any time during the application process. Organizations with overdue or incomplete reporting will not be considered for new funding until reporting requirements are met and signed off by community grants. If you're unsure if our previous project reporting is overdue or incomplete, feel free to contact the Community Grants Office for more information. At any point during the review or evaluation process, if your application does not meet the eligibility requirements, it may be canceled. As stated on the previous slide, CFEP Large funding is only approved on a matching basis. The applicant must contribute an amount equal to or exceeding the CFEP Large grant request towards the eligible expenses of the project. The matching funding may be in the form of cash from their own organization, other organizations, municipal or federal grants, or private donations. Additionally, matching funding can come from donated labor, equipment, or materials and services, all of which must be specifically related to the project. Donated materials and services should be included in the application package and would include a letter from the company on business letterhead, which indicates the value of the donated material or service. Due to inflation, the donated values for labor and equipment have been adjusted with the updated CFEP Large program guidelines. Unskilled labor directly related to the project has remained the same at $20 an hour. Skilled labor has increased to $40 an hour. Previously, this was $35. Heavy equipment, which includes the operator, has increased to $120 an hour. Previously, this was $70 an hour. Donated land can also be used as a matching amount. However, the donation needs to be made within the 2-year period before the application submission date. Donated land must include a transfer of title from the owner to the applicant. Please note that anything deemed ineligible in the CFEP guidelines would also be ineligible for matching purposes. There are some key differences when deciding whether CFEP Small or CFEP Large is the best fit for the project. When looking at funding required to complete a project, organizations can request up to $125,000 in matching funding from CFEP Small. If requiring more, CFEP Large can accommodate over $125,001 up to $1 million in matching funding. For example, if the cost to complete a project is $500,000, perhaps CFEP Large is a better fit to request the maximum of $250,000. Or let's say if the municipality is providing $400,000 in funding to the project, then CFEP Small would be a better option to request $100,000. The timing of the application submission or notification may also be a factor when deciding between CFEP Small and CFEP Large. As organizations are notified approximately 6 months from the application date, organizations may find that one of CFEP Small's 3 intake dates is better suited to meet their project timeline needs. Speaking of timelines, CFEP Small requires project completion and reporting to be completed within 18 months from the date of check. CFEP Large has a longer timeline of 30 months. As stated previously, there are some reporting differences between CFEP Small and CFEP Large. A big one being that CFEP Large requires a review engagement report completed by an independent accountant licensed in Alberta. If applying through CFEP Large, a review engagement report can be included in the project budget. More information on the reporting requirements can be found in Section 9.3 of the CFEP Large Guidelines. These next few slides, we will go over the key process and guideline changes for CFEP Large. We encourage, as it is very important to read the CFEP Large Guidelines before applying to ensure that your organization and project meets all the eligibility requirements and criteria. As mentioned previously, one of the changes to CFEP Large includes the outcomes for the large stream, which captures immediate and intermediate outcomes versus just long-term. In addition to that, there are changes throughout the guideline document, and here are the key ones at high level. We now have moved to a two-step process, which includes an expression of interest, or EOI, to determine project readiness. Organizations that are evaluated as shovel-ready will be invited to the application process. To accommodate the new two-step process, the submission deadlines have been changed. The deadline for expression of interest submission for 2024 is June 15th. Moving forward in 2025, the expression of interest submission deadline will be May 15th on an annual basis. Organizations must be registered for a minimum of 2 years prior to submission to ensure an organization can demonstrate sustainability and has the capacity to deliver on a large-scale capital project. Streamlined description of project eligibility provides clarity on project types and the intent of the funding for public use facilities. These new project type categories include renew or expand, construct or purchase, and provides detailed descriptors on what that means within the context of the CFEP Large funding stream. With the change to CFEP Large Guidelines as a standalone set of guidelines, the criteria was updated to align with the larger scale projects, and also addresses the assessment criteria for the expression of interest and the evaluation criteria for the full application. As mentioned previously, CFEP Large has moved to a two-step process, with step 1 as an expression of interest, or EOI. The expression of interest will be a high-level project overview. Questions during the expression of interest will gather information on a project's eligibility and readiness. This will include project description and project need, organization capacity and eligibility, project viability and financial stability, project impact and outcomes, project's demonstration that it is shovel-ready. The assessment criteria for the expression of interest is listed in the guidelines under section 4.1.1. Through the expression of interest submission, it is important to demonstrate your project readiness. Components used to identify if a project is shovel-ready are funds in place to complete the project, which includes the matching requirements for the program. Expression of interest will determine if the organization has the project funding confirmed. Alternatively, if there are pending funds, is there a contingency plan in place in case the pending funding is not approved? This will ensure the project will continue. Shovel-ready means that sources of the project cost have been completed, which would include recent quotes. For large-scale projects, such as constructing new builds, tender bids must have been developed or obtained. Pre-planning for the project has been completed. In the case of a new build, this may mean designs, concepts, and/or schematics. This could also mean a business case, feasibility study, or other pre-planning documents that have been completed that demonstrate the project is well thought out. And approvals are in place. If this is on a leased property, has the title holder provided their approval for the project to go ahead? Documents identified in the expression of interest, such as permits, a business case, and quotes, will be required to be submitted as part of the application. Only projects that are deemed shovel-ready will move forward to the application process, and organizations will be notified within 6 weeks of the expression of interest deadline date if they can move forward to the application phase. Organizations who will not move forward to the application phase will also be notified and will be provided with rationale as to why they were not successful. Previously, the CFEP Large application deadline was June 15th, and organizations would historically be notified in December. During this transitional year, the expression of interest will be reviewed starting June 15th, 2024. During this time, an initial assessment of the expression of interest will be reviewed to determine the eligibility, outcomes, and project capacity and viability. Organizations will expect to hear if the project will be invited to submit a full application between July 15th and August 30th. Organizations will then submit their application and supporting documentation identified in the expression of interest by August 30th. Organizations are expected to be notified in January. However, beginning in 2025, the dates will change going forward to the ones found in the CFEP Large guidelines. The expression of interest closing date will be May 15th, with invitations to submit an application between June 15th to July 30th, and expected notifications in December. Community Grants is moving CFEP to an online portal called Gate Front Office. Other programs in the ministry and Community Grants' own Community Initiatives Program, or CIP, operating have already moved to Front Office. Community Grants staff have developed online tutorials and can provide one-on-one support to organizations for navigating the online portal. You will find these tutorials on the Grant Program website. CFEP Large has not been fully transitioned to Front Office, so for the June 15th, 2024 submission, you will not be required to register for Front Office. To submit your expression of interest will be through the Community Grants' inbox, and we will talk about that process in the upcoming slides. However, effective for the 2025 submission deadline, organizations will submit their CFEP Large funding requests through Gate Front Office. Applicants will need to register for Front Office by submitting a Front Office registration form, which will be found on the program website to the registration inbox you see here. You will need to give yourself, at minimum, and we would highly recommend more time than that, 10 days to register for access prior to the deadline date. But as mentioned, you will not need to register for Front Office for the upcoming June 15th, 2024 Expression of Interest intake. This section of the presentation will go over the process for application submission, including document and criteria requirements. As mentioned earlier, CFEP Large has moved to a two-step process, with step 2 being the submission of an application. Organizations will be notified if the project moves forward in the CFEP Large process and will be invited to submit a full application. Again, organizations who do not move forward will also be notified. During the application phase, organizations will be required to submit all mandatory documentation and any additional documentation identified in the expression of interest. If additional information or documentation provided is different from what was identified in the expression of interest, it is important to inform staff of these updates as it may impact the evaluation of the application. As limited funding is available, not all organizations invited to submit an application will be funded. Organizations may receive full, partial, or no funding. Application submission will be evaluated against the criteria outlined in Section 4 of the guidelines. If an applicant is invited to the application process for the June 15th, 2024 intake, the organizations will have a 45-day window to submit the full application, including any supporting documents, for review and evaluation. To meet the application submission timelines, organizations should prepare the following applicable documents: a project business case, a 5-year operational budget, a lease or user agreement if required for the project, a third-party agreement, which is mandatory if the organization is engaging a third party to carry out the project on their behalf, such as with the title holder or municipality. There are resources on the CFEP Large webpage to help support your work on these documents, and you can contact our office should you have any questions. There are certain documents required to accompany your application, such as in the application, there is a declaration page that will need to be signed from a member of the organization with signing authority. This is typically the president or treasurer, but can be anyone with financial and decision-making authority for the organization. An executive list of your organization. This should include contact information, such as daytime phone numbers and/or email addresses. Financial statements, signed by 2 members of the organization with signing authority. Bank statements may also be requested if the financial statements do not demonstrate your organization's confirmed funding. The project budget, which will have a detailed list of confirmed and pending revenue towards a project, as well as the listed cost expenses for the project, including donated labor and services. Any pending funding should be explained with details on when the pending funding will be confirmed, with a contingency plan or fundraising plan in place. A 5-year operational budget, which will show the revenues and expenses of your organization and project. There is a resource on the CFEP Large webpage to help support the development of this document. An application for electronic payment form, which can also be found on the CFEP Large website, along with a void check or direct deposit form. Quotes or tender bids for the project. Also, if the organization received donated services or materials, a letter from the donor on the company's letterhead should be provided. If the organization is not the owner of the facility, the organization will have to submit a lease and a letter from the title holder approving the project. The lease should be a minimum of 8 years from the submission of the expression of interest. If an organization is purchasing a facility, then an offer to purchase would be used as a source of the expected cost of the project. If an applicant is in a third-party agreement with another organization, a letter is required at the time of application. A resource document is available on the CFEP Large webpage that outlines when a third-party agreement is needed and what should be outlined in the agreement for the purposes of CFEP. It is important to submit all mandatory documents, as incomplete applications may be cancelled. There are many other documents that are beneficial to submit with an application to help support the program criteria, like project viability, sustainability of the organization, and project need and impact, such as a business case. This is the standard document expected in CFEP Large applications. An online template is available on the CFEP Large website. However, organizations are welcome to use their own template if they have one. Other documents include a feasibility study, a needs assessment that may demonstrate deficiencies in the facility, architectural concept designs, engineering reports, or community surveys. Letters of support from community members, user groups, partners, and the municipality are beneficial to the application and demonstrates community support for the project. If required, providing the permits that have been completed are beneficial to include in the application, as it demonstrates that the necessary approvals are in place to complete the project. Partnerships and collaborations can also demonstrate the need for the project beyond the organization, and that information should be included as part of the application. And as stated previously, any documents that were indicated as part of the EOI submission will be required with the application submission. Applications are assessed against a specific criteria, which is outlined in the guidelines under Section 4. This criteria includes the following: organization's capacity, which means the organization must demonstrate its ability to execute the project through providing background history, such as through the mission and purpose statement, the organization size and representation, the length of time organization has been in operation, and prior experience with these types of projects. Project viability and financial stability. To be considered a viable project, the organization must demonstrate its sufficient matching resources for the requested grant amount, have access to additional funding required to complete the project, provide a detailed budget and explanation of costs within the application, and demonstrate long-term financial viability and self-sufficiency, including the ability to meet long-term ongoing operational needs. It is important for the organization to demonstrate a dollar-for-dollar match in cash or verified donated in kind. Current bank statements might also be requested. Bank statements should demonstrate that you have a matching funding in place and enough cash to support the operations and overhead of the organization for at least the next 6 months. If this is not evident in your bank statements, you can provide detail on other revenues that are anticipated to sustain the organization. Project benefits. Organizations that must demonstrate the project will result in high level of community impact, enhance quality of life and community wellness, result in programming and operational efficiencies, and/or extending the lifespan of the public use community facility or outdoor space. Economic impact is a new criteria within the CFEP Large guidelines. The organization must demonstrate that the project will provide one or more of the following: support job creation either during construction phases and/or in the organization's operations after the project, increase revenues for the organization, provide value add for the community, and/or support Alberta-owned or operated companies where applicable. Accessibility. Organizations must demonstrate how the project will provide broad public access beyond the organization's direct membership, and that services are available to one or more demographics, such as gender, age, cultural group, etc. As an example, organizations could demonstrate how the project will offer mobility-challenged individuals greater access to the facility, which includes wheelchairs, walkers, and parents with strollers. Accessibility criteria can also be met by demonstrating how the project will enhance the facility space for use by more diverse user groups, from children to seniors to various cultural groups. Community and regional need. Organizations must demonstrate how the project will impact communities at a local, regional, or provincial level, enhance utilization or meet changing needs, and include any partnerships and/or collaborations that are directly related to the project, and not duplicate any other facilities in the area. Organizations also need to demonstrate how the project need was determined. For example, a survey of community members may have been completed demonstrating that the community prioritizes more space for programming, recreation activities, community gatherings, and so forth. You could also use previous attendance numbers for past events and programs, long waiting lists, or demonstrate the oversubscription to services. As an example, an organization might provide a current feasibility study that recommends a new facility due to overscheduling or long waiting lists for arena use in the area. You could also identify in your application how the facility offers unique services to the community, such as if you're the only community hall in the area that can accommodate up to 1,000 people, but at the same time can turn into a community emergency center in times of disaster. Other considerations made when evaluating applications include alignment with government priorities, the frequency and amount of prior funding provided to an organization through community grants. Regional equity is also considered when evaluating projects to ensure funding is spread throughout the province equitably. Demonstration of need for the financial assistance. The ability to complete a project with partial funding. As there is limited funding within CFEP, if an organization is able to complete the project at a reduced amount, whether this is through using cash reserves or value engineering the project to complete it at a reduced cost, this will be taken into consideration in the overall evaluation. And lastly, when an organization does not own or operate the facility, demonstration of strong organizational involvement in the delivery of the project and connection to the facility once completed. It should be noted that due to limited funds and high demand for funding, not all requests that meet the established criteria will be approved for funding. Applicants may receive full, reduced, or no funding for their project. We hope this video has helped you understand the updates to the CFEP Large program guidelines and the new two-step application process. If you have any questions regarding CFEP Large, please contact Community Grants by phone at 1-800-642-3855 or by email at communitygrants@gov.ab.ca.